Good afternoon. I'm Will Ryan, and you've tuned in to another edition of Conversations on CTSB. This afternoon, it is my great pleasure to introduce Susanna Opper, who, by the way, is my wife, and she is the chair of the Sage Village Committee. And she'll tell you much more about what that means. Susanna, tell us about Sage Village, all of this.
Thank you. Well, I'm happy to be here, and happy to tell you about the very exciting movement that's taking place throughout the United States that will enable older people to stay in their own homes as they age. 87%, according to an AARP survey, 87% of older people would like to be in their very own personal, comfortable home when they age. And for most people that I know, they don't want to go to a nursing home or even a continuous living place. They want to be in the comfortable surroundings that they raised their family in and they're comfortable in. But that's challenging. It's challenging anywhere, but it's especially challenging in the Berkshires because our distances are so great and our transportation is so challenged.
Yes.
So what has happened about 3 years ago, a couple who live in Lenox by the name of Howard and Shirley Shapiro got really interested in this process of forming villages. And villages are geographically defined. The movement began actually in Boston about 15 years ago in Beacon Hill, which is a small geographic area. And they were able to get going pretty easily. We've been a little more challenged in the Berkshires, and Howard and Shirley have actually been working on this project for over 3 years. But they have made a lot of progress, but we're not there yet.
Okay.
So the concept of villages is geographically defined, as I say. They are self-governing and self-generating. This is not a government project. Howard and Shirley, when they did their research, they hoped that maybe some state or national organization would take this project on. Didn't happen, isn't going to happen. So this is volunteer, self-governing. This is local grassroots organizations popping up around the country. There are actually 230 of them now, and another several hundred happening all over the country. They're in Connecticut, they're in New York, and the idea is that volunteers and some paid people will help to enable older people to get the services they need to stay comfortably in their own homes. Now, there's a model for this. There are several models.
Well, may I ask you a question before you get into the structure? What I'm hearing sounds to me like it's neighbors helping neighbors, each of them wanting to stay in their own homes.
Yes, basically that's right. It is very much, neighbor is a big word in here.
Yes.
But it's not, I mean, we have an informal process. We live in a town called Alford, and we have something called Alford Assist, and we're very neighborly with each other, and if somebody needs to go into Great Barrington to pick up their car because it's been serviced, then you can just post on there, and maybe somebody will help you, maybe they can't do that. This is more organized than that. This actually is going to be driven by a website. So if I have a doctor's appointment, for example, if it's Monday and I have a doctor's appointment on Thursday, I'd be able to go online. I'd ask for somebody to take me there. There are some other services in the county that will take care of medical appointments, and we will be collaborating with everything that exists. But suppose that it's Saturday afternoon and I want to go see a movie with a friend. And suppose I can't drive anymore. That's not the case now, but suppose I couldn't. I could ask for that kind of help.
Great.
Suppose I just would like somebody to come and visit me because I'm lonely. Maybe I have a light bulb that's gone out and I can't get up on a ladder anymore, or I shouldn't do that, to change that light bulb. So yes, it's neighbor to neighbor, but with a little more structure and organization than just sort of giving somebody a call and saying, hey, can you help?
So what I'm hearing is maybe there'll come a day when I can pick up the phone or perhaps go online and say, I need a tech guru. I don't understand my whatever, because all of it is so intimidating. Is that something?
Yes. Technology is a big piece of it, and a lot of things are going on in villages to help that happen. But let me give you a little bit more structure, and then we'll come back and talk more about what the services are. So what Howard and Shirley have done is they have formed an organization called Villages of the Berkshires, and that is going to be the hub, the main place where all this administration that we've just been talking about that takes care of the website, and they're a 501c3 organization, so they've done all that kind of infrastructure.
Which is nonprofit, right?
Nonprofit, right? They've done all that infrastructure already, so that will be the hub. And then various villages around the Berkshires, and they're not like, it's not like a condo. It's I stay in my home, you stay in your home, like that. These various villages will form, again, kind of spontaneously and through volunteers and people taking the initiative. And so the first village that's going to be formed as part of the Villages of the Berkshires is called Sage. And that's for Sheffield, Alford, I always do this, Great Barrington, and Egremont. And we picked those because they're kind of South County and they're co-located. But if you know anything about the Berkshires, you know that the distance between the farthest point in Sheffield and, say, the point in Alford that's the closest to West Stockbridge, that's a long way.
It is.
So we have a really big geographic challenge, not only for things like transportation, but even if somebody's going to come and fix my squeaky door on my porch, or just come and visit with me for an hour.
What I'm hearing, at least conceptually, let me run this by you. We've got a number of people who are resources that, as part of a village, Sage, let's say, I can avail myself of those resources. And can I also volunteer to participate in some way and be part of this? Absolutely.
I'm glad you brought that up. Because one of the challenging things about where we are in the evolution of villages right now is that it's very much a chicken-egg problem. Because people say, well, has it started yet? Because, hey, over 3 years, why don't we have this all happening now? Well, it can't happen until we have enough volunteers to provide the services. But if the volunteers volunteer and there's nobody to serve, then that doesn't work either. So it's very tricky to get the people signed up who need and want the services now, and then to get the volunteers like you and me who don't need the services yet, except for those light bulbs, that we don't need most of those services, but we could be volunteers. So yes, volunteering is very important. And the other thing I want to say before we get too far into
let me just ask a question before you say that, because I want to go back and just clarify. The size of a village, at least it sounds to me, is it based upon how many people, because you want to have enough resources to do the volunteer and not too many that you got a monster geographic problem. Is that?
That's right.
Okay.
And here's the hard part. When we ask the question, oh, really, what should that be? Everybody says, we don't know. So there's a lot of questions that there aren't answers to right now, because this is all very new. And so the idea of volunteers is important, and something that's very important to us is this is not only for seniors. We want to include people at all ages of life cycle, because suppose, for example, young couple is working, maybe they have a couple of school-age kids, 7 and 9, something like that, and the parents don't get out of work until 5, the kids are done from school at 3. Suppose they went to a senior's house for a couple of hours, just, the senior doesn't have to do anything, just, kind of give them a little parental guidance, and maybe the kids would do their homework or whatever, and then the parents would come and pick them up there. So a lot of this is cross-generational, and that's something that's very important to us. and very important to the people we're partnering with. One of the organizations we're partnering with is Age Friendly Berkshires, which is a Commonwealth-wide sponsored organization that's looking to do exactly this. We're also partnering with OLLI, which is a life learning organization that is part of our community college here. And then there is also a nationwide organization of villages, and we're part of that as well. So all of this is happening. It's almost like an octopus, and each different tentacle is related to that hub again, but sort of going in its own direction.
Let's back up for a minute. I'm curious about where it's been successful, and can you give some track record of where it's been plugged in?
Yes, one of my favorite examples of that is Marin County in California. They are celebrating their 10th anniversary.
Wow.
And similarly to the Berkshires, they are geographically dispersed, and they also have separate villages. And if you go to their website, each one of those separate villages has different activities, different character, a different chair of their committee. So it's very sort of loose in a way that each area can have its own personality, and yet all coordinated so that we would have one executive director, for example, who would be dealing with all the administration for each of the villages.
Can you give us a quickie update on where we are in the Berkshires, in particular South County?
I can. We haven't, there's a central village, which is Pittsfield, Lee, Stockbridge, and Lenox. And they are just about to start providing services, and they have been just about to start providing services for a couple of months now, but I am told that very soon they will be able to do it. They have had their volunteer meetings, and one of the things we're doing is we're vetting all the volunteers to make sure that they're safe for the older people, and we're interviewing all the people who are going to be participants, so there's a lot of work involved. And that's going on right now, and we're hoping that they're going to be live, so to speak, really soon. In the meantime, our Sage Village has been meeting for pretty close to a year now, and we have done 2 information sessions in South County at the end of the summer and early fall. One of them was in Great Barrington, one of them was in Egremont. They were very well attended. And between those 2 sessions and some other people that we have on the list, we already have over 100 people in South County who are interested in getting started with this. And the people in the central village feel that you have to have about 20 members in order to be viable and get started. So they're pretty much there, and we should be able to get there pretty easily.
Oh, I sure hope so.
Yeah.
I'm actually warming up for being a volunteer for the Sage Village. I just signed up, and I'm now a driver for Volunteers in Medicine.
Great.
Which is driving patients from their home to Great Barrington and back. And so that I'm going to learn a lot about how that works. And so I'll be fully trained and ready for our Sage Village.
We'll make you the head of the committee of driving. Actually, transportation is the #1 issue.
Yes.
In Berkshire County, not only for seniors, but for everybody. Everybody knows this is a challenge. Everybody's trying to work together, so we're coordinating. One of the models, the best model in Berkshire County is the VIM Volunteer Drivers Program. So we're watching that very, very closely. And this is a challenge. You know, other places have Uber and Lyft and things like that, and this is no problem, but we don't have this here. So we're going to have to evolve our own transportation system, and that is, everybody agrees, that is #1.
Well, it sounds to me like the 2 challenges are the 2 T's: transportation, technology.
Yes. Well, the technology thing, by the way, one of the things that we're working on in villages is getting young people from high school involved. Some of them have social service projects that they are required to do or they get credit for, and they're the ones that know the technology. Now, sometimes they talk a little fast and move a little fast
That's true.
for we older people, so that's a wonderful intergenerational project, and that is ongoing right now.
What do you recommend to our listening audience in terms of what next steps for them? What guidance can you give them?
Well, one of our next steps for the Sage Village that we're very excited about is we are going to have a third information session, and it's going to be held in Sheffield, because Sheffield, again, is a little bit geographically away, and so not so many of them were able to get to our other two information sessions. And we don't have a date yet for that, so you'll have to check in on the website, which is villagesoftheberkshires.org. So that's villages with an S of, villagesoftheberkshires.org. So that's where you can get the information about the date for this.
And that's all one word, villagesoftheberkshires.org. Okay.
And so that information about the date for that Sheffield information session will be on the website, and certainly anybody who's interested, I'm sure if they can just even contact right here,
yes.
CSTV,
Yep.
and anybody there knows what we're up to, and they'll get the message to me. So that information session will be probably at the end of April.
Okay.
And you can go to the website right now and sign up to be a volunteer, especially if you're in that more central Berkshire area. You can sign up from anywhere, but obviously you would have to do a little bit more distance traveling if you were going to be helpful to somebody in Pittsfield if you lived in Sheffield, for example. So there's sort of that same issue. And we're really excited to get more people interested in volunteering and get more information out there.
Well, as I listen and understand what you're saying, I can relate to how the situation here is at the station, because with the population loss we've experienced over the last 30 years, there is a significant lack of individuals who are available, have time, et cetera, and so what strikes me is that the movement, it can't move too fast because it needs to move with the population. And I'm sure that the Villages movement is going to experience the same sort of challenges with the lack of people to actually do the work. And so what occurred to me, as you said earlier, that if the Villages needs resources that cannot be done by the individuals who live in that village, that you can get resources outside and keep it going. Is that right?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that was one of the things I wanted to mention, that another thing that we're doing is we are bringing in professionals, carpenters, plumbers, electricians, other people like that who do home services, and especially a handyman, because some of this stuff isn't hard.
No.
You know, if my screen door doesn't work right, you know, this is not a big deal. We're bringing in professional people and vetting them and hoping maybe, but we're not sure yet, hoping that they will also be willing to give maybe a 10% senior discount, something like that. And so I really would like to cover all the kinds of services that we'll be doing. There's the issue of isolation and loneliness, which has been publicized a lot for all levels of population today, but particularly for senior people. I saw a statistic recently that 50% of the people over 65 who can't drive don't leave their home, sometimes for days on end.
Wow.
So there's this issue of isolation, so just companionship. And one of the things you asked me about existing organizations, if you go to the Marin County Villages site, you'll want to move to California just to do all the exciting, fun things they're doing. They're doing hikes, they're having coffee clatches, they're playing bridge, they have a book club. So all the kinds of things that enrich life in terms of interacting with other people, the Villages movement will be able to provide that. And
Great.
So it's very, very exciting from that point of view.
In the time we have left, I want to, if we can, compare life in the Villages in your own home to if you decided to opt for one of the senior homes around the county. And my perception is that those facilities offer an array of services, so that if you whatever you need in your apartment, you're trying to, in the Villages concept, provide those services and do so while you're in your own home.
Yes.
Wow, that's powerful.
True. That's true.
Yeah.
And what I've learned personally, and I was a little surprised by this, I thought that when you move to those kinds of places, like Kimball Farms or Gear,
Willowbrook, or any of
Gear,
them.
some of those places, I thought all your needs were taken care of. But recently, friends of ours moved there, and we found out that isn't true.
Yes.
They have just as much. Neither of them can drive anymore. One of them can't see well enough. The other doesn't have the strength to drive. And I thought, well, they'd be driven everywhere. They're having a very difficult time because there's a van that goes around. It makes certain stops. But if you want to go somewhere else, and that's not where the van's going,
Is that like
don't have
taking
an
the county
option.
bus, that BR, whatever it is?
well, there's that. Yeah. So, so it turns out that the perfect solution is not in those institutions either.
Wow.
The perfect solution is probably, 10 years out or whenever we can get our villages up and running really, really robustly, we'll probably offer more services even than those continuous living homes are offering right now.
So if I'm faced with a choice between going into one of those facilities where you've just changed my perception, because I thought, like you, that they provided all transportation, and so in a sense, the Villages is going to offer even more, and so I don't have to pay a lot of money to become part of one of those organizations. I can stay in my own home, and I got all these wonderful services. Is that it?
Yep.
Wow, it sounds almost too good to be true.
Well,
but it's working
that's
in
why
the
it's
ring.
so hard to get it started.
Yeah.
And it's not free. I mean, there is a model. We have not chosen that model here in the Berkshires, but some other villages are volunteer and, nobody pays anything. That's not the model that was selected for here. And our model will have a cost for a single individual. It comes to $1 a day. And for a couple, it's $1.50 a day.
Wow.
And we're aware that for some people, even that is too burdensome. So there are efforts underway already to get grants so that people who are proven to not have the income to be able to afford this will be able to be sponsored in some way by some grant or other process.
That's almost too good to be true. For that really, really low fee, you're going to be able to provide all these wonderful services, which, God bless. That's
Well,
fantastic.
Again, you have to look out a little bit. Will they be able to do it tomorrow? When they get started in the central village, and somebody calls and says, I want to go play bridge with my friend in Lenox, and I live in Pittsfield. Will there always be somebody to take them in the first week? Maybe not. In the first year or two, we hope.
Definitely. And is there any upfront cost, as there would be for one of the other facilities, where I have to pay a lot of money to move in there? First of all, I'm not moving anywhere. So is there any upfront cost?
No, you would just pay your monthly. Now, the fee may actually be paid in a 6-month increment.
Okay.
But no, there's no upfront. And also the other thing that we're working on is a lot of people we have here are what we call snowbirds, and they go away in the winter.
Right.
And so they wouldn't want to be paying for a service that they couldn't get. So we're looking at a 6-month process. So some people could just buy in for 6 months.
Okay. Well, it sounds absolutely superb. And in the minute or two we have left, what would you recommend that people do to get engaged, either for their own self-interest or to be participate?
Well, again, I think volunteering, being in touch, certainly coming to our information session in Sheffield. We also did a video, in fact, you did the video of the Great Barrington Information Session. That is not currently available online, but I actually have a meeting later on this week, and I hope at the end of this week we will have that online as well.
Excellent.
So we're really looking to get the information out there. That's the most important thing. And then also for volunteers, anybody who has the skills. I've heard people say that they love doing these kinds of little chores, fixing this, fixing that. It's kind of their hobby. And so they're actually looking forward to an opportunity to be helpful to someone who needs a table repaired or a door fixed, or you know how those doors stick when you need to take it off and plane it. I mean, just some of these simple little things that people have been putting up with can actually be resolved by the process of getting involved with villages as a volunteer and then also as a participant.
Thank you, Susanna, for your service to the county and for providing all this information to our listeners today. It's very exciting. The two of us, I can share, plan to stay right where we are, and so we're fully engaged. Once it's there, we're part of it, and I hope you will be too. Thank you for listening.
Yep, so villagesoftheberkshires.org, or just send an email right here to CTSB TV in Lee, and they'll get the information to me. Thanks for listening.